Ashen. We'll keep trying to get you up, but just in the interests of respecting people's time, everyone, welcome. This is the fourth in a series of spaces where Olympus Grants is introducing some of the grantees from our first cohort, which we've dubbed the Amanita cohort. So without further ado, on the bill, we also had Pazzy T lined up. Pazzy's had to hop on a flight, so we'll catch up with Paz another time. So this show is all about MetaMars and what's happening with the Olympus grant. But I know I'm not sure how much you've publicly revealed about the game. I know I've heard bits and bobs here and there, but Board, maybe I could hand over to you and you could maybe give a bit of an intro to you. Maybe folks in the room aren't so familiar with your journey, so maybe you could give us that kind of high level view of how you got into crypto, maybe background with gaming, and maybe how that's intersected with Olympus.
Yeah, of course. I'll touch a little bit on my background and then jump into some conversations around MetaMars as well, and hopefully we have some time at the end to do some Q&A. So in terms of myself, been on Twitter as this entity, Board Elon, for 8 years. Have grown it to a fairly sizable following, and have had a lot of fun sort of parodying Elon Musk, but have really transitioned over time to kind of have my own individual voice. And last year started doing things like Twitter Spaces and podcasts to confirm that I am not, in fact, the billionaire space tycoon. But I respect him very much and continue to watch all his progress. But on my end, outside of the Twitter personality, spent a bulk of my career in the traditional video game space and really dived into Web3 blockchain several years ago. And as soon as I started to spend more time with non-fungible tokens, it was clear to me how that was going to revolutionize gaming the same way that the free-to-play model changed things a decade ago in the traditional video games world. And despite, I think, a lot of questions and criticisms and concerns around, merging the world of gaming with currency, I see it as a really powerful opportunity for players to be owners of the time and effort that they put into gaming and into the games that they play. So I've really shifted a lot of my time and attention, whether it's investing or education, into blockchain gaming. And MetaMars is a project that a small team and I have been working on for just under a year, and we're really enthusiastic about sharing the fact that it's launching today for people to demo and to play. I think a lot of projects in the space talk about what's coming and what their roadmaps are, and that's fine and understood. But we were fortunate enough to be able to be building quietly and have a product to actually share today, and there's a lot more to come. So yeah, before I get into the game itself, do just want to like take a pause and acknowledge there's a lot of really difficult things that are happening in the world. Myself and many others on the team are close friends with people who are across Europe or in Eastern Europe who are personally impacted by what's happening in Ukraine. It's very difficult to watch, and we feel very lucky to be, together here talking about gaming and something that's very lighthearted. But want to acknowledge that obviously this is not as critical as many other things that are happening today, and not dismiss that by any means. So, in terms of MetaMars, just to kind of provide a high level overview first, being very on brand, it is Martian themed. It is exploring this idea of building a civilization on Mars. That is very close in theme to what real Elon is doing. But what we're doing is building a project that is going to consist of two announced phases. So the first phase, which we're launching today, is kind of this idea of a meta arcade, where we're building high impact, high quality arcade games. And if you're a gamer, you might have heard the term mid core. It's not quite a casual game. It's not quite a hardcore game. It's somewhere in the middle that's highly polished, and fun to play, but is more than just kind of like a Candy Crush style game on your phone, for example. So we're going to have a collection of those games with the first launching today, which is a rover racing game, kind of a top down time trial style game. and we'll get into some of the details on that, with many more to come. And hopefully we're looking to launch about 5 of those games this year. The broader vision, or sort of phase 2, is going to be more of a multiplayer experience that takes place on Mars, that goes into the realm of MMORPGs, where players are really interacting with each other. And all of this, of course, is happening with the integration of Olympus, which we'll talk about a bit more. So that's the general sort of thematic that we're going for. I think the biggest differentiator for what we're building in terms of a blockchain game is that we are leaning into this idea of a no-loss mechanic, so a no-loss arcade game. For anyone who isn't familiar with that term, there have been a few projects out there that have popularized the idea of a no-loss lottery, which is a bunch of people pool money together, that money earns interest, and then that interest is given to a lucky few who win a sort of raffle. And then the idea there is, you're kind of saving money, you're playing this game, but there's no loss, right? You eventually can pull your money out that you originally deposited and walk away scot-free. So we took that concept and applied it to gaming, and specifically prizes. And so the idea for MetaMars is that you're going to be able to play as long as you deposit Ohm. That Ohm will, of course, accumulate value over time, and then we're going to use that interest essentially to reward prizes to the best players across the ecosystem of MetaMars. So that's kind of our mechanic. The easiest analogy is, imagine going to an old school arcade. You put a token or a coin in the machine, you play the game, and then the coin comes back out when you're done playing. That's kind of the simple way to think about it. So it's definitely different than what a lot of other people are seeing in the blockchain gaming space, which revolves around far more complex kind of play to earn economics. We're keeping it fairly simple for now, and we're really excited to do something that's different in the space. So lots more to talk about, but I'll pause there just to give the Olympus crew an opportunity to chime in or ask questions.
Housekeeping first, Ashen, I've tried to invite you up. If you maybe leave the room, come back in and try again, maybe we won't get rugged by Twitter. That's it. So Board Elon and crew, I've had a sneak peek at the game, and it's as you mentioned, really well, it's here. It's you can actually play it compared to a lot of we've seen recent. I've forgotten what the name of that kind of NFT project where people lay down a lot of funds, and then they're kind of receiving this mishmash of pixels and kind of surprised it. That kind of spirit really reminds me a lot of the kind of frothiness of the 2017 kind of ICO, write a white paper and then kind of do a big raise and kind of see what comes afterwards. And if you look at the number of projects from that era that have actually survived in a meaningful way beyond being like a zombie project that's kind of on a chain floating out there in space. It's, to be honest, one of the things which attracted me, Willemi Pine, into the Olympus ecosystem was that there was this culture of essentially building stuff, shipping it, and then speaking about it afterwards. And I think when I saw your project, the MetaMars, kind of come across my desk from the grants department, I was kind of like impressed by that same spirit of, okay, these folks are already, they get it. They're already in the background, they're working on stuff. And I guess what was interesting for me is you mentioned in other games, there's this attempt at kind of boiling the ocean in a sense of, on the one hand, creating an engaging, good game, and at the other time, also trying to figure out complex tokenomics and play to earn dynamics. Can I just ask, like, at what point in the project's development did you just say, hey, let's keep it simple on the tokenomic side and let's just make an exceptional game? Like, what was the team's reasoning behind that that approach?
I think that we were thinking about the average game player. Right now, and I see this every day, there's a lot of skepticism and questions around this idea of blockchain gaming. And I think that part of that is driven by the complexity of the systems that you see. When you play kind of a traditional video game, that game will have its own sort of in-game economy. but you brought into it slowly, right? The game teaches you sort of, here's the world you're in, here's how your character works, here's the general storyline, and eventually it introduces marketplaces and crafting and all of these things. I think what you're seeing right now in the world of blockchain gaming and these sort of larger kind of MMORPG wannabes or the that are being built right now is that it's throwing too much at the player on top of the fact that they also have to maybe learn how to use something like MetaMask for the first time or buy crypto for the first time. So none of this is really helping onboard the average gamer. And there's billions of people who play video games every single day. But the number of people who play blockchain games is minuscule. It's like at best, a couple 100,000 active users every single day. And so our logic was let's try to go after people who maybe are interested at a high level in crypto. Maybe they use DeFi, maybe they have a Coinbase account, and they like video games. But let's not do too much to kind of force those things together, where their video game experience becomes DeFi or their video game experience becomes a trading sort of platform. Like that isn't probably what is going to appeal to most gamers. And so we felt like abstracting the economics more from the game would be key. And I think the biggest filter is, could we build a game that could have nothing to do with crypto and still be fun? And I'm biased, but I think the answer is yes, we absolutely did build that. And so the element of crypto right now that is being kind of layered on top is mostly just in the prize mechanism, but has nothing to do with it being sort of a core element of the game, where the game would not function if it wasn't on chain, or if crypto wasn't heavily involved in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, big time. Was it always the plan to kind of approach it in the no loss way, or was there something specific when the team and you were looking at Olympus and you were like, hey, actually that would be a fit? So just maybe I should take a step back for those who are a bit unfamiliar with Olympus. Olympus is a kind of a technology that's aiming to be kind of the decentralized reserve currency of the internet, starting with Web3. And part of the technical mechanism is part of a suite of protocols which are called rebasing protocols. And essentially what that means is when you hold an account balance every period of time, so it's every 2,200 Ethereum blocks, which corresponds to about every 8 hours, your holdings in SARM terms, in ARM terms, stake terms, increases, it increments. Now, there's been advances where there's different representations of this. So you maybe have GARM. That amount doesn't increase, but you can think of that being the bag. And inside your bag, the coins, the ARM, does increase every 8 hours. So was it something about Olympus being a rebasing protocol? And I should mention that in the blockchain space, that's quite a different thing, because for the most part, if you want to change the balance, the account holding of one account versus another, you need to submit a transaction to whatever blockchain that you're on, which costs gas fees and this type of thing. So the fact that the balance on an account is changing without the need for an on-chain transaction is what makes it a rebasing protocol. Was it the fact that Olympus is one of these rebasing protocols that kind of like stimulated that idea, or did you go into the project thinking that you wanted to create like a no loss style, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so a few things. We definitely did come up with the idea of the no loss lottery or no loss arcade mechanic or prize mechanic first, and we thought a lot about which chain do we use, or which currency do we use to sort of back the overall economy, and we looked at a lot of the standard coins, Ethereum being the first, and I must admit. When we were thinking through, what made the most sense, we looked at interest rates, right? Because our prize pool is based on growing our pool with interest, and so if we were asking players to put in ETH, for example, and we were getting a measly whatever 0.2, 0.3%, it wasn't going to really do that much for us, and the prize pools wouldn't be very large. Now, Olympus is very different, as you said, very interesting in that you can minimize the number of transactions needed on the network, but also see growth in the overall value, especially as people continue to join the community. And so for us, it just made a lot of sense to explore using Olympus as our base currency for the game. But I think the other part that's a little bit less tangible is as you said, it's a team that ships, right? They build first, then talk about it later. And I've been a fan of Olympus, since late spring of last year when things got started. And one of my favorite parts about the community, within the Discord and just overall, was the sort of hushing of hype, right? When people, many times I remember talking to the community about, hey, should I, with my larger Twitter following, talk more about Olympus? And people were like, no, don't worry about it. Slow down. We're going to ship a few new features, and then you can promote it later, like whenever it makes the most sense. But I love that attitude of just building something of value and not using hype to continue to drive the price of Olympus. Like that was super important to me. So I just I think we really synced with the team. And besides that, I think just thematically, it's kind of fun to combine this idea of a MetaMars and what you have done with Olympus. The sort of the Greek analogies and the mythical story that you have wrapped around a financial product is really interesting to me. And so I thought that our two different storylines that we've been creating synced very, very well. So yeah, for all those reasons, I think it made sense for us to collaborate with your community, and make Ohm the reserve currency of MetaMars.
I keep laughing at the fact that I'm going to be on Mars before real Elon. It tickles me in that sense. So I appreciate that insight. I'm wondering, we also have Swifty up here. So I'm wondering, is there kind of anything Swifty you'd want to kind of bring in, or boards, like where would you like to take the convo on this side? Because you mentioned that you've released today, is that right?
Yes, you can go to metamars.org today to demo the game, the first game, which is Rover Wash. And so I want to call out Swifty is on the team, as well as Ashton Fox. You'll see him in the audience, and hopefully he can join on stage. But Swifty was part of the project very early and has spent a lot of time, on the game, and did a lot of the early sort of planning around the game. So yeah, if there's anything you want to chime in on in terms of what you're most excited about, or what people should know about the experience before they jump in, go for it. Oh, he got rugged. He's a listener now. Okay, well, that's fine. I'm happy to sort of elaborate a little bit more, though. So what people will experience when they go to metamars.org is they'll get some information on the overall project. But in terms of the Rover Wash game itself, there's sort of two versions that you can play. So one important point to note for now is we did release a game. It is playable, but it is an early stage game. So the project has a specific NFT that's associated with it called the Mars coin. There's 900 of them. So what we're doing is that if you hold that Mars coin, you can play the full 10-minute game. The way it works is each round gives you 10 minutes, and you're basically trying to do laps and score as many points as possible in that time. If you don't have a Mars coin, that's fine. You can still play, but it'll limit players to 2 minutes. So you still get a pretty good experience and get to test out the game, but it won't be fully available. Over time, we'll change that and allow anybody who is basically willing to deposit Ohm to play the full game. But we're sort of in the testing stages. Anybody who's spent time developing games understands that it's perfect as you think it is at launch. There's going to be so many things that crash it, and there's going to be bugs that people find. It's not going to work on certain systems. So we're using the next few weeks to kind of debug and get feedback from a few hundred or 1,000 people, not 100,000 people all at once. And it looks like Swifty's back. So Swifty, if you want to chime in with anything, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. For some reason, it keeps disconnecting me.
All good.
Yeah, so in terms of for me, I just love the Ohm or Olympus rather, uses math to stabilize the number instead of just saying, oh, this is what the price is like most stable coins. Instead, it uses the min-max balancing of the API and the demand and supply. And so that's what made it really interesting for me as like an option to use Ohm as the kind of backing currency to the Mars to the currency in the game. And one of the kind of main things with the game for me with these kinds of projects, I'm guessing a lot of you guys have seen it with a lot of NFT projects and things, but tons and tons of people create, they create all this hype and they're about to launch, and then before you know it, their website goes down or they crash. So with me, I'm mainly a back-end kind of developer on this kind of managing the servers and things like that. So for me, the mission kind of was to make sure that the website and the systems and things could sustain proper load when people start visiting it, and it won't crash at the most inopportune time. So I think you'll find with a lot of aspects of MetaMars is each aspect has been carefully considered and designed, from the gameplay to maybe lore to the back-end systems to even the menus and the website information.
Yeah,
Appreciate
so a
that.
couple
Yeah,
of
it's
things
like
on the
wild
game.
to me that when like even I don't know whether it's like they're part of their go-to-market strategy now when big companies or big orgs um, haven't like test or load balanced their website for high traffic on launch, and then it goes down, thinking like Apple or like government websites around voting time and this type of thing. So yeah, props to you for like not following that shitty pattern. Sorry, Board, what were you going to say?
Yeah, well, a few elements I wanted to add. Our decision was to make it a browser-based game, which is certainly becoming more common, but it does introduce a lot of variables, right? Browsers, what machines people are using, how many tabs are they running, what other operations are on the machine. But we did want to make it accessible, just because people are getting more used to operating within their web browser. That's where their crypto wallet is. So it makes a ton of sense. A lot of other projects are, asking people to install software on their machine, usually a PC, and that's fine. For larger games, it's necessary. But our goal is to try to keep it a browser-based game, and that's where what Swifty was alluding to is so important. And kudos for him for building a system that can handle lots of traffic. Although we're probably now, asking for it to break now that we've said that publicly, and encourage everyone to try and break it, and find the holes, that we will plug over time. In terms of the game, though, just because I know a lot of people are interested in that, I will note it's one of those like easy to learn, hard to master type games. I think one of the most frustrating and fun parts of it is that we tried to replicate Martian gravity as much as possible. So the rover itself in the game is quite heavy, but the gravity on Mars is obviously different. So there's a lot of bounciness, a lot of sliding around. I think everyone in their mind has sort of an idea for what a car is how it's supposed to move and operate. It's going to feel a little bit different, but we're excited to see what happens and how people can quickly kind of adjust to the physics that we've built. And for anyone who's familiar with the idea of speed running in video games, we think this game's going to be really fun for those people who kind of want to find all the shortcuts and find ways to maximize the points. So our hope is that we can have some really fun competitions around how many points people can score in the 10 minutes they're given to play, each round.
So from the Olympus side, I mean, it sounds like the integration is, to be honest, quite a simple one. So with the integration of Ohm, you've got the increasing balance in the treasury, which goes towards the prize winning pool. It seems like eventually to access the system, you'll either need to deposit Ohm or have access to one of the NFTs, or there might be some thing. But beyond that, the integration isn't more fancy or complex. It's really the hero in this instance is the game. which, sounds like a simple proposition, but like so many of the games coming out of the blockchain space just seem to be really overcomplicating it.
Yeah.
Are you one of the first games to implement a kind of an existing currency and then just get to focus on games? You're more deep in the gaming world than me, but I certainly haven't come across many. Like, how are you situated within this kind of emergent field?
Well, I do want to say that it will get more complicated in terms of the integration of Olympus into the ecosystem, but we're starting simple on purpose, and that goes back to this idea of bring people into a new game or a new experience, help them understand, here are the basics, and then make it more complicated over time. So, as we shift from phase one, which is a series of arcade games, to more of like an MMORPG, Olympus will play a much bigger role, right? So we'll have our own in-game currency, which we tentatively are going to refer to as oxygen credits. And so those oxygen credits will be derived from people's ohm that they are, holding. But yeah, I think for us, we wanted to not necessarily make ohm the star of the show, because again, when it comes to games, you don't want to focus too much on the economics, just focus more on the games and sort of abstract the economic side. But we do think that by asking people to deposit ohm, then they're buying into it and they're getting comfortable with the idea of ohm being used in gaming. And we hope to set an example so that other game studios also consider using Olympus for what they're building. It makes a ton of sense, just based on the sort of the rebasing mechanism. And as Olympus continues to expand on layer twos, it's even more worth the consideration, because we know a lot of game studios have chosen not to use L1s like Ethereum, just because there's lots of transactions and that makes it very expensive for people to play games. So we think there's a lot of opportunity there. But yeah, I mean, I think back to one element of your original question, I think that our goal is to just help the Olympus community grow by setting a positive example of using a currency in a unique way. And I would say that as far as I know, and I spend a lot of time analyzing the blockchain gaming space, no one is approaching it in a way that we are with the no loss prize pool. It seems that you have sort of two approaches that are more common. One is like the overly complex, let's build an in-game currency with multiple layers to it. And the other is just simple ownership of assets. Like, you need this asset, which usually is an NFT, to be able to play a game. And if you don't have it, you can't play. So those are kind of the most common instances. We're not requiring anyone to own NFTs to play the game. And we're not, creating this really overly complex ecosystem that is, leveraging, blockchain. So in terms of the mechanics of the deposits, we're going to have two factors. One is you can deposit ohm, and you'll have to hold it for a certain amount of time in MetaMars to participate. And basically, that will allow you to play the games, participate in the no loss prizing, and then when you're done, or if you choose to, you can extract your original deposit. The Mars coin is kind of a special NFT and it's optional, but basically what we're going to do is anybody who does possess a Mars coin will be able to play for free. They'll basically get a certain amount of credits for free. So those people who bought those Mars coins were buying them basically early last year. And in a way, they were kind of helping crowdfund the development of this game. And so it's our way of rewarding those early adopters and supporters by giving them some free play time. But again, anybody who's putting ohm into the system can always take it back out. So it's not going to cost anyone anything to play. It's a matter of just allowing us to hold their funds, use that to build up a prize pool, and then share that with the top scorers in the game.
It's very cool. Super bullish. I think as far as decentralized currencies towards Web3 and the internet go, increasingly the way that people will come into contact with it for the first time, it won't be seeking it out necessarily, but it will be having some utility. So here, presumably people are going to be seeing either on your account board or somewhere else this game that they really want to play, and then in the process of onboarding into the game, they become kind of users of ARM. And I think that's kind of the trajectory that we're heading towards. There's this framing of ARM where it's destined for the footer. So for example, you'll be accessing some type of a service or a utility, or in this instance, a game. And then somewhere down in the footer, you'll see like powered by ARM or something like that. And so really just the team within the DAO, there's just so much excitement for what you all are building with MetaMars, because it's kind of like a leap shot into kind of the future of where we see our beloved currency going. But it feels like we've kind of got a bit of an insight. For those who've just entered into the room, we're speaking with Board Elon, and there's a few other members of the team. We're getting a bit rugged by spaces at the moment, so they're not able to come up. But MetaMars is a project that Board Elon and a few other folks, Ashen and Stealth, who was just up. Was it Stealth? Swifty, have been building kind of in stealth mode behind the scenes, and kind of connecting over the fact that Olympus and MetaMars kind of share this culture of building a bunch of stuff and quietly in the background, and then shipping and then speaking about it, which is quite a different kind of cultural approach than we've seen kind of oftentimes, or is one of the modes of production in the blockchain space. We mentioned kind of how in the ICO phase 2017, there's like this build a white paper, raise a bunch of funds, and then maybe figure something out in the future. So that connection there for Olympus and MetaMars. And it's I'm Walemi Pine. My personal account also got rugged, so that's the voice you're listening to. But I figured we've got some time now. Board, do you think we should open up for Q&A, bring people up from the floor if they've got questions, or is there some like other final, because you've mentioned that you're launching today, is there any other call to action that you'd like to mention before we kind of open up to questions?
Yeah, I mean, definitely would welcome anyone to ask questions if anyone's interested in exploring further, and hopefully you're able to to add people to the speakers list on your end, and it's not completely rugging you there. But while we're doing that, while people are putting in requests, I will just note. We're very grateful for the grants program for selecting MetaMars. And one important note I want to make is that the vast majority of the grant money is really going to be used to increase the prize pools and help draw more interest in the adoption of Ohm. We've really been sort of funding this project on our own, putting a lot of our time, effort, and dollars into it ourselves. And so the Olympus team, we made it very clear to them that this money was gonna help, increase the prize pools, and that's what's important for the players, and to keep drawing people into the system. So wanted to make that note. And I will say, whether you have a question here in the space today, or think of something otherwise, always am happy to chat with people. So if you're not in the Olympus Discord servers, I spend some time there, so you can always feel free to ping me, and we can speak offline. But would certainly encourage everyone to check out MetaMars.org. You do need a MetaMask wallet to actually play the demo, so give it a shot. If you're liking what you're seeing and want to play the full 10-minute version, you will need a Mars coin, and there's some on the open market that you can buy, and they've maintained their value quite well. So hopefully you see it as a worthwhile purchase.
So I'm not seeing any waving hands, so do stick your hand up to come up if you've got a question for Board. It sounds, maybe we can loop back around through to, given that it's an in-browser game, it sounds like would it be fair to say that you really did get to focus on the process of building the game rather than tokenomics and this other stuff? Because it sounds like the integration with ARM as the kind of currency and treasury is almost a standalone thing that the game will kind of maybe have a connection scan for people's accounts and other such. So my impression is that in the process of playing the game, there's not kind of an inordinate amount of transactions being sent up to layer one. Is that a fair question? Because I know in other gaming in the blockchain space, one of the problems they've got is just a massive amount of transactions that they need to register on the network and all of the stuff there. Would you say using ARM has simplified the game building process for you in that relation compared to kind of a different approach?
I think, honestly, it's the format that we've chosen to integrate, a currency into the game that makes it easier. Not to disparage Ohm in any way. I just think that it's the framework itself that makes it easier. Transparently, for the first few weeks and maybe even months while we're testing the system out in the prize pool, we are going to be doing things a bit more manually. Down the road, we hope to sort of automate the process of depositing Ohm and then rewarding prizes automatically. I think when it comes to games, especially if we're rewarding people for scores, we need to spend some time just making sure that nobody's messing with the system, cheating, finding workarounds to rack up scores in a way that wasn't intended. So we're going to be sort of awarding the prizes more by hand, but the goal is to do it fully, transparently, and over time do it autonomously, so the team doesn't need to be involved in that. First of all, it's labor intensive, but secondly, it's just not in the nature of Web3. But I think that ultimately, when it comes to gaming, there does need to be this balance of decentralization and centralization, because the code of the game, the actual physics, what is happening visually in a game is not something that happens on chain, right? That's Unity. That's a developer who's making those decisions on what are the powers a character might have and how things work. So that likely isn't going to change. So it is a balance. So yeah, for the first few weeks, we'll be doing things a bit more manually, and we will be rewarding prizes based on sort of us observing the top scoring players and making sure there's no sneakiness happening.
Love it. When Dropbox first started, they were like manually running this stuff in the garage, right? It's just one way of doing stuff. Is I think that makes a heap of sense, because you have to respond to the emergent properties of the creation that you've created, and I guess I'm interested to see how it goes with as you get this first 1,000 users. I'm interested to kind of follow that journey.
It is very much while we're scaling slowly and not trying to bring in 100,000 people and hyping up the system faster than it's able to. We need to prove that we're able to do this, and my reputation is always at stake when I'm a part of a project. So if I'm vouching for this, it's important to me that it is run smoothly and that no one feels like there's a rug pull in the making. Hopefully, my 8 years of presence on Twitter shows that I'm not just some anon who showed up and is trying to take advantage of people. So I appreciate everyone who is willing to deal with some of the bugs and issues that may come up with any sort of game that is new, and really appreciate any feedback we get on how to quickly improve upon that.
If it is a rug, then we want it to be a rug that flies you up to Mars to have a good experience, rather than like rugs as we know them in crypto space.
Magic carpet,
the magic carpet ride. We've got Silanok. Welcome up to the floor. Can you talk?
Hi. Yes.
Welcome.
My name is Elena. Yeah, my name is Elena, and hi, boards. I'm very excited to see that everything that you're building, that now you're finally announcing. Just for context, boards been in gaming for a very long time and is super passionate about the space, as we all know. And I think my question is, so I know we talk about technicalities, we talk about like the different game mechanics, but I think what I'm excited about is that, first of all, Web3 and Web3 gaming is a completely new platform for game design, for inventing different mechanisms. So obviously we're still very early in this phase, But I think what we saw with the mobile platform and the invention of mobile free-to-play games, which kind of took over a lot of the PC games and became this like really big genre of games, right? Maybe more casual than some of the more serious PC games. But Board, I'd love to kind of hear from you, if you don't mind. Like, what are you excited about for gaming, like in the next, 3 to 5 years? Like, what do you think that Web3 will enable us to do that was not previously possible with the other computing platforms or with the other business models in gaming?
Yeah, I think that every new platform or technology that enters into this industry expands the pie of players. Like free to play made gaming a lot more accessible to people who maybe couldn't afford to spend $60 on a game. Mobile gaming made gaming more accessible to people who couldn't buy a $400 console or a gaming PC. And so while some people who are concerned with this, sort of genre of blockchain gaming as being extractive or pulling developers and talent away from other parts of the industry, I think that's like zero sum thinking. I think what you're seeing now is that blockchain gaming is bringing more people into gaming that weren't spending time on it before. To put it really sort of like bluntly, there are a lot of people who maybe just didn't want to invest some of their valuable free time into gaming. It wasn't necessarily a hobby that they wanted to spend their time on versus scrolling on social media or watching TV or hiking or whatever it might be. But maybe if there's some small economic incentives, that might bring more players into it. And so for me, yeah, just enabling more people to play games and enjoy that genre is the most important thing. And I think, Elena, to your point about game developers being more inventive with like what can this enable and what kind of new styles of play can be created. I think that's yet to be seen. I think what you're seeing right now is a lot of people replicating existing game styles and sort of reverse engineering them so they're on chain. But we'll probably see brand new things that we haven't even heard of before over the next few years, and that's really exciting. And I think for me, what is really appealing is for anybody who does spend quite a bit of their free time on gaming, just having a sense of ownership or some sort of monetary incentive on top of the fun and the play, which is of course the most important thing. It's just the cherry on top. It makes this, I think, an even more appealing pastime. So yeah, that's what I'm most excited about. And again, it's just expanding the pie and maximizing the number of players.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If there's anyone else with a question, feel free to stick your hand up. Silnok, whilst we have you up on the floor, it sounds like you're a gaming OG. Is there any news from your world? And also just from the Olympus perspective, before this chat with Board, had you come by Olympus in your travels?
I mean, I have been to Greece. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but so I think I'm more of a casual gamer, contrary to like a lot of people who are probably in this chat. So I'm one of those people who is very excited about NFTs, who actually is much more excited about all the different things that are happening in the space now that we can have ownership, because I think for a long time I felt like I really would rather spend my time on something else where I can have a more immediate ROI, whether it's in terms of my career, whether it's in terms of earnings. But now that we have NFTs and we have a lot of interesting other game dynamics, whether we see guilds that are getting together, not just for esports, but for a lot of Web3 games, kind of like the Yield Guild or some of the others that are being formed. And then I think for me personally, like it's much more interesting to have the gamification of different industries that are maybe not necessarily just gaming. And again, sometimes when I play, I've tried to play some of the serious games, but I feel like by the time I figure out like what all the controls on the joystick are doing, I'm already killed like 3 times. So, and then like a 12-year-old is basically just like, haha. And I'm like, okay, great. Like that was, that didn't quite work out the way I planned. But yeah, I think for me, again, what I'm so excited about is different business models and different applications of gaming where people who might not be serious gamers like myself or as serious gamers, like, I mean, I've played like some claymation, like some other stuff in the past. But again, it's people like me who can get involved now, whether it's again playing or participating in the economy. And I think for a lot of us who are from the US, we don't quite see how much the new economies are enabling people from developing nations where their average salaries are maybe $500 a month, and now they can make that amount playing video games, participating in guilds, farming axie creatures. So again, to me, that's pretty exciting that people can now actually make a living doing what they love versus what they just had to do for work previously. So
And I do want to chime in on Elena's point about how she describes herself as a gamer. And so right now we hear a lot of feedback and criticism from quote unquote gamers about the space that we're talking about today, which is Web3 games or blockchain games. But it's important to remember that gamers are not a monolith, and the vast majority of people who play games do it on a mobile phone, and it's a casual game. And so there's lots of different cohorts within gamers, and no one should really have the right to sort of define what is or isn't an appropriate way to play. The market will make games, and people will be attracted to the level of depth that they want. I think on our end, our goal is to try to maximize the number or styles of gamers that we're reaching. I think, like I said earlier in the talk, we're building a mid-core game that hopefully will appeal to people who are more like on the core gaming side, but also not be so complicated that a casual gamer can't enjoy it too. So we're going down the middle. But yeah, I mean, if we can bring in somebody like Elena, who maybe doesn't spend as much time playing games each week, and give her more of an incentive to spend time, on MetaMars, then it's a success for us.
I'm very excited about MetaMars.
Same. We're 10 minutes out. Please do wave your hand if you'd like to come up and chat with any of us. I'll maybe take a moment before the end, so it's not a rush, just to mention, Elon has mentioned that MetaMars is a recipient of an Olympus grant, which will be going towards the treasury, which will then be, through this rebasing mechanism, kind of expanding the prize pool. So Olympus, for those of you who don't know, is a Web3 project that's aiming to become the reserve currency of Web3 and beyond. We're my name's Willemi. I'm one of the contributors to the Olympus Grants program, and we're particularly interested in helping that vision come into reality. So we've primarily been focused on education, utility, infrastructure. If you have an idea of something, if the conversation today has triggered an idea in you or something, we'd love to hear from you. You can find out more at grants.olympusfinance, olympusdao.finance. Link is in the Twitter bio. We've got a fund of about 1.5 million per, at the moment, a trial amount of 1.5 million to put towards these types of initiatives that utilize ARM, which is the native tracker of Olympus, the projects, a bit like ETH is for Ethereum. Olympus is also makes us think of Greece. So a lot of the lore around the project is Greek mythos and Zeus and all of this type of thing. But yeah, so we'd love to hear from you if you do have an idea for how your idea might integrate with a DeFi Web3 internet native currency. So in the case of our chat here with Board, they're exceptional game designers in and of their own right, but pairing with or partnering with a mechanism such as ARM allows some interesting mechanics. Not to take the shine off MetaMars, because all of the magic is primarily coming from from what you folks have been building. But we've got 6 minutes till the hour. I'm not opposed to kind of ending early just to respect people's time. So, Board, maybe I'll let you end out in the way that you want to. And if there's any final questions from the audience, please do stick your hand up. I'll bring you up. But from the Olympus side, just want to convey that we've been so bullish to play the game, Board, and really feel lucky to have crossed paths with you in the DAO server. Come by the idea and got to play some small part in what you folks have put together.
Yeah, likewise. And it's been amazing to watch the Olympus team grow. There's ups and downs, but I see a consistent work ethic and just continuing to put out great products. So I'm glad that we can have this, mutually beneficial relationship. And to everyone who's listening, I really mean it. All the constructive criticism you can throw our way, please do. We want to spend the next weeks and months improving the product. So, perhaps 30 days from now, we'll host another Twitter space and everyone can just go on stage and hurl insults and tell us how bad the game is. And we'll take that feedback and make it better. But yeah, we definitely encourage people to try it out, try to score as high as you can in Rover Wash racing. Really excited to see what people discover and the Easter eggs that are throughout the game. And as we, grow the team and start building out more of our follow-up games, we will likely need talent. So if you are in the game development design field and you're not against blockchain, we would love to chat with you and see if we can collaborate. So yeah, thanks again for everybody who came to listen, and to the Olympus team for working with us.
Very welcome. As an Easter egg mentioned, we've got an 11th hour person who's requested up. So maybe Flo, hello, welcome up to the stage. We'll make this the last question just to be respectful of everyone's time. But hello, nice to hear from you. If you're speaking, you're still on mute. Oh, we might be getting teased by Twitter Spaces. I'll wait a few more moments, Flo, but if not, we will maybe either us together or Board Elan directly a month after launch will set up a space. But yeah, thanks everyone so much for coming through. I know at the moment with everything that's going on in and around the Ukraine, we're living in strange times in amongst everything. So appreciate you coming here to spend time with us, given all of the other priorities that are going on in the world right now. But Board, thank you for making the time, and see you on the internet somewhere.
Thank you. See you.